Welcome to the Empowerment Hour, a podcast dedicated to the woman ready to take charge of her life, live in her purpose, and be unapologetically authentic. I am your host, Nancy Ruffin, award-winning author, mommypreneur, and the self-proclaimed Latina Oprah who is dedicated to helping women unleash their power, discover their purpose, and live up to their fullest potential. My goal is to empower you, inspire you, and help you unlock your passions and discover your purpose so that you live the most fulfilled and impassioned life. If you're ready to make a change and start living on purpose, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Empowerment Hour podcast. It's your girl, Nancy Ruffin, aka the Purpose Professional, aka the Chosen One, aka the Latina Oprah. Yes, the Latina Oprah. Some people get mad that I call myself that. But you know what? That's their issue, not mine. In any case, I'm super excited to be back with you guys for another week of just self-discovery and intentional living and purposeful living and getting aligned with our God-given gifts. It's been a pretty hectic week for me, and if you guys can't tell by my voice, I am sick. I have been battling bronchitis all this week. I'm actually feeling a little bit better now, but it was bad, and I've never had bronchitis before. And so if any of you are familiar with it or not, let me tell you a little bit what that feels like. But it's a tightness in your chest where you feel like you can't breathe and your sinuses are all clogged. And it's like this phlegmy cough because mucus has built up kind of inside of your lungs, and it just is not fun, guys. It's been an incredibly rough couple of days for me. And in this week's weekly roundup, I actually want to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been happening in pop culture. As you all know, the Super Bowl was this weekend, and there were a large number of people that decided to protest the Super Bowl and have been protesting football in general just because of everything that has been happening with Colin Kaepernick and the fact that the NFL won't hire him because of his political views and his stance against police brutality and just the mistreatment of Black and brown people in this country. And he's really become this civil rights icon of this generation. He's been compared to Harry Belafonte, the likes of MLK, and all of the greats that we know have committed their lives to seeking equal justice for all. And so there were a lot of people that were boycotting the Super Bowl. Now, me, I'm not a football fan by any means, so I'm not someone who watches football or even watches their Super Bowl. However, I do tune in to watch the halftime show like everyone does. And this year they had Justin Timberlake performing. And, I guess I would call myself a fan of Justin. I mean, I definitely love his music. I think he's an excellent performer and entertainer. And I don't know if his Super Bowl performance wowed me. And I say that because when you think about past performances, like when you think about when Beyonce was on, or when you think about when Bruno Mars performed, and they had these really phenomenal, performances, I didn't feel that Justin's was as great as theirs. However, what I will say was that I was impressed by his tribute to Prince and he had like a hologram image of Prince, and he was singing some of his songs, and I thought that that was nice, primarily because the Super Bowl was taking place in Minneapolis, and that was Prince's hometown, and I thought that it was a nice homage. But his performance overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I probably would have gave it a 7. Not bad, but not great when you think about past performances. And I guess congratulations goes out to the Philadelphia Eagles. And from what I understand, this is their first Super Bowl championship. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know anything about football. And so I really am just repeating what I've heard on the news. So congrats to them. And then some other interesting news that happened this week, or I think over this weekend. Apparently, Kylie Jenner announced that her and her boyfriend, Travis Scott, are welcomed a baby girl. Now, I know that there had been so much speculation on whether or not Kylie was pregnant, and she had been hiding her pregnancy for the entire 9 months. We never saw her with her belly. And although we never saw her, I don't think that this news has come as a shock to us. And you know, people love to hate on the Kardashians and the Jenners, and everyone has their opinion on their lives and how they have managed to amass their wealth and popularity. And, you know, truth be told, I am not knocking them. You know, I have no feelings one way or another towards the Jenners or Kardashian clan. How they live their lives have no bearing on me whatsoever. I think that they have done really well in using their gifts, if we can call them that, to create the lives that they want for themselves. And, you know, they're beautiful women, all of them. They are an extremely beautiful family, and they learned how to use their beauty to translate that into a business. Because when you think about them, they don't have any real skill or talent. And you know what I mean by that is that they're not actresses, they're excuse me, they're not writers, they're not really creatives in any way. They have just learned how to make a brand and a business off of their beauty. And I think that they're incredibly smart and intelligent women to be able to do that and create this empire, not only for themselves, but for their children. They're going to leave their kids, you know, with an incredible empire or legacy to, I guess, to fulfill, or to keep going. And you can't really knock that, because this is something that I talk a lot about, and that is figuring out what it is that God has given you, and use that to live your best life. And whatever that means to you, right? Because happiness is subjective, and what I consider living my best life may not be what you consider living your best life. We each have different ideas of what that is. And I just think that it's really unfair and judgmental to knock these women for creating the lives that they want to live for themselves. I mean, from what we see, because they share a lot of their lives and their personal lives, they seem to all be very happy with who they are, with what they're doing, with where their lives are. And so who are we, or who is the public and the media to criticize how they've gotten to where they've gotten, and what, you know, doing what they're doing? Kim, as a matter of fact, recently just shared some photos on the internet, like she always does, showing her body. And people continue to criticize her and judge her. And I guess maybe because she's a mom now, maybe because she's a wife, and society has placed certain expectations on women based on these roles that we play or that we're in. And I guess because she is a mom and she is a wife, that she should no longer love her body, or she should no longer feel sexy, or she should feel embarrassed. And I don't believe that anyone has the right to criticize her, because at the end of the day, she isn't hurting anyone. And regardless of what we may think about her as a mother, and the example she may be setting for her kids, I mean, one can argue that she is teaching her children to love who they are, to be confident in the skin that they're in, regardless of what people say about you. And you can't be mad at that. I mean, because me personally, as a mom, one of the things that is really important to me is that my children, my daughters, grow up to feel that they are beautiful exactly as they are, in the skin that they're in, the texture of their hair, and everything. And so, my girls couldn't be any more different. I have one who is really tall and slim with really tight curly hair. Then I have the baby who weighs as much as my 5-year-old. And you can tell that they're going to have different body shapes. They already have different, textures of their hair. One is darker than the other, but I don't ever want either one of them to feel like they don't measure up. I don't ever want them to compare themselves to one another, feeling like they have to look like so and so to be beautiful, right? And so I don't knock Kim for embracing who she is, for living her life unapologetically, for not caring what people say about her. I think that in itself is an important message, and I think that that's something we should all strive for, not only in our own lives, but in how we are raising our children. Because I will tell you, the world is cruel, it is mean, and unfortunately, our children encounter this cruelty at really young ages. And so as parents, we have to be able to prepare them for that. And the way that we do that is by instilling in them that there's nothing to be embarrassed about, that they should never be ashamed about who they are, how they look, where they come from. And it's interesting because this weekend, on Saturday, I held my second vision board workshop. And I will have to tell you that it was such an incredible experience. And they always are for me, because every time I get an opportunity to unite women in a space who are virtually strangers, and they come in and they share some of their most intimate experiences, things that they've never really talked to anyone about, yet they come in here and they feel safe enough to open up to this room of strangers. And, I always share so much of myself, of my own life. And one of the things that I talked about is, the more I do this work, the more I step into my purpose, the more I acknowledge my greatness, because I believe that I am great. I believe that the work that I'm doing is important. And I do call myself the Latina Oprah, because, again, and I don't have to explain it, but sometimes I feel like I need to clarify because it throws people off. And it's not that I am wanting to be the next Oprah. I don't. I am going to be the first Nancy. But she signifies everything that I respect in someone and all that I aspire to be. And so for me, there's no one in the Latina space that is equivalent to Oprah. And so my goal is to get to her level, but then to surpass her, right? Because we have to strive always for more. You don't ever want to settle. You want to set your eyes on the prize, and then when you get there, you want to kind of keep climbing. But I found that me calling myself the Latina Oprah offends people, and they can't stand it. And they question me, and it's like, and not me per se, but in their minds, is like, who does she think she is to think or believe that I am that great, that I could possibly ever become, as big or as great or as powerful or as impactful as Oprah Winfrey, right? And to them, I don't owe them explanations, right? I don't ever have to explain to anyone who I am, because I know who I am and I know what I'm capable of. And so, yes, I believe that I am Oprah status, right? I'm Oprah level. And so I may not be known as much as she is, but I will be. But what I found is that I've heard this a few times, and not just from like one person, but there people get offended when I call myself the Latina Oprah. And initially, it would bother me, and I would become defensive, right? But because I'm human, and I think it's our normal reaction. But one of the things that I've learned, and I also have great women in my life that reminds me when I seem to forget that. But I've learned that the things that people are going through and their projections have nothing to do with me, and everything to do with them and what they're going through. And so for them, hearing me call myself the Latina Oprah is just a representation of everything that they don't see within themselves, or the things that they have not been able to create or manifest for whatever reason. It stems from a place of insecurity. And I get that, and I know that at the most, intellectual level. Yet the human part of me can still get defensive when I hear that. And then when that happens, I have my sister and I have great friends that check me and remind me of who I am, and to never let anyone um, make me forget that, right? And so I share that because I shared this story this weekend, in the vision board workshop. And then one of the attendees, this woman who I've been following for quite some time on Instagram, and we've connected, and she's just a beautiful, genuine soul. Her name is Charlene Nader. I would recommend that you guys follow her if you're on Instagram and you're not. I believe her IG is I am Charlene Nader, and she's also she kind of does similar work that I do. She's the founder of the GEM organization, and I believe that GEM stands for God Engraved Me. So she's another woman whose work is driven, is God centered and driven on the premise of helping others. And I think this is why her and I connect really well. It was like a spiritual connection. But in any case, she shared this story with us about her. I believe she said it was her 4-year-old daughter. She's her preschool age, so I want to say 4 or 5. And so one day, and I want to share this story with you guys because it was so extremely powerful, and it helps to put things in perspective, even for us as adults. Her daughter came home from school one day and told her, "Mommy, there's this girl in my class who is being really mean to me." And so Charlene asked her, she was like, "Well, what do you mean? And, what did she do, or what did she say?" And her daughter responds, "Well, she said that I can't go to her house." And so, as the mom, she responds, "Well, honey, well, she doesn't want you to go to her house. And, that's fine. You don't have to go to her house." And so I guess this little girl would say this to her every single day. And it was hurting her feelings. And so one day, Charlene, picks her daughter up from school, and they pass by this building, and her daughter says, "Mommy, that's where my friend lives. That's this little girl who doesn't want me to go to her house. That's where she lives." And so when she looked, it was a motel. And so at that moment, Charlene says that it registered to her. And it wasn't that the little girl was being mean to her daughter, but more so that she was embarrassed about where she lived And that was why she didn't want anyone to come to her house. And so I share this because for me, when she shared this at the workshop, it was an aha moment. Because even children as young as 4 or 5 years old are projecting their own insecurities onto others, right? And so if they're doing this as children, what do you think we're doing as adults, right? Where we would expect to know better, but yet we don't. And because we don't know how to deal with the things that are happening within ourselves, the only way we know how to do that is by maybe knocking down another woman who is living in their purpose and living their life unapologetically and doing what they want to do, and being mean and saying mean and nasty things. And so for me, I'm learning to acknowledge this. And so now when I'm greeted with these negative comments, or when people say hateful things or things that may hurt me, I don't internalize it like I used to. And I take a moment to kind of put myself in their shoes and try to understand where that's coming from. And then I pray for them. Right? And ironically, talking about this, and it's so crazy how God works. Synchronicity is amazing. But we talked about this over the weekend. I'm talking about it now on this podcast. And then this morning, one of my friends, Eileen, who is a loyal listener to this podcast. Hi, Eileen. She sent me this photo, a screenshot of a scripture from the Bible. And it's from Luke, love for your enemies. And so I'm going to read it because it aligns with everything that I've been talking about. You have heard that it was said, love your friends, hate your enemies. But now I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may become the sons of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun to shine on bad and good people alike, and gives rain to those who do good and to those who do evil. Why should God reward you if you love only the people who love you? Even the tax collectors do that. And if you speak only to your friends, have you done anything out of the ordinary? Even the pagans do that. You must be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. And I will tell you that scripture, first of all, I saved it on my phone because I don't ever want to forget that. Because it is easy to love those who love us, right? But the true test comes in being able to love those who mean to do us harm, who do hurt us, who have ill will towards us. When we can do that, that's when we're becoming more godlike, right? That's when we are surpassing our humanity, our human self. And that takes a lot of growth, right? That's not something that happens overnight or even, weekly or by next month. That takes a lot of spiritual learning, I guess, and educating and being in tune with your God and your Creator, and understanding that we all come from the same source, even if we are all different. And it was just an incredible lesson for me. And so I challenge you all to kind of take this message and try to apply it into your own lives, because I'm sure that there's someone that you can relate to, and whether it's at work, whether it's in your own family, whether it's someone who used to be a friend who no longer is your friend, there are people that have hurt us, either intentionally or unintentionally. And so our job is to understand that all of that is coming from a place of hurt within themselves. as they say, hurt people. So we have to be able to kind of forgive and not internalize it, not hold on to it, but let it go and then pray for them. And today I want to talk a little bit about the power in sisterhood and allowing yourself to become vulnerable, because that is where the true connection happens. And I say that because I've witnessed it so many times, especially with this work that I do, especially in my workshops. As I mentioned, so many women come in guarded, they come in as strangers, and then something happens. And it's because I'm so open with my own life and I share so much of my own journey and my own struggle that women allow those walls and those barriers to come down, because now they know that they don't have to keep the mask on, because I'm no better than they are. I'm just like every other woman in this world. We all have the same struggles. Even if we're at different points or phases in our lives, we all struggle with insecurity. We all struggle with self-doubt. At some point or another, we've battled with confidence issues. We've felt like we're not enough. We struggle with our weight, with how we look, whether, we're successful enough, all of these things. And this weekend, I had the opportunity to invite a woman to come speak at the workshop, Anne Marie Martinez, an amazing soul. She's just as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. And she is stepping into a new phase, I want to say, in her life. This is a woman who has been able to take all of her skills and talents and expertise from her past life in nightlife. She's been responsible for some of the biggest names and brands in the hospitality, and nightlife industries. And she came and she shared her story with us. And she was talking about how she was doing this work, but that it always seemed like it didn't sit well with her spirit and with her soul, because it wasn't who she was. And in a way, she wasn't being authentic. And so, she ended up having a breakdown. And in that breakdown was when her breakthrough came. And it allowed her to take all of the skills and talents that she had amassed in her previous life and now pivot into doing work that she loves and that she's passionate about. And so she is the founder of the Conscious Connectors, which is a platform really geared towards connecting people across the world, globally, internationally, and all focused on conscious living and being able to really live your best life. And so many women in the room were moved by her vulnerability and being able to just be honest of her journey and her struggle. And I will tell you that the women in there started sharing their own stories, and it never fails. We always cry, we always laugh, and then by the end, we always just leave with this newfound sisterhood. And one thing that I always find is that in these moments, when these women allow themselves to really take off the mask and become vulnerable, there's always another woman who reaches out and says, it's okay. It's okay for you to cry, and we're here for you, and let it out. And it is in those moments that the bond is made. Because who of us has never felt low, has never felt unsure, has never cried, right? And all we want is to be seen, to be heard, and to not be made to feel like we're less than or like we're weak because we're showing this vulnerability. This, why can I say this word? This vulnerability. And there's power in that. And I think that that's where the real strength comes, when we can take off the mask, stop pretending, and let people really see us for who we are. Because we've become really great at pretending and making believe, that everything is great, and we feel like we have to hold it all together all the time. And I want to tell you that we don't, that you don't. That it's okay to be human. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say, I don't have this. It's okay to say, I don't know. Because when you say that, then you're opening yourself up and you're allowing another individual to say, you know what? You don't have to know all the answers. I'm here to help you. We can figure it out together. And that's the most important thing to me with what I do. Being able to provide that safe space for women, being able to connect women in this way so that even though they walked in as strangers, they leave as friends. And I will tell you, and I've said this many times, this work is not work that I ever thought I would be doing. It took me a really long time to trust in women and believe in the power of sisterhood. But I will tell you that I do believe in it, because when I was at my lowest, when I was struggling to get pregnant, when I had lost faith in my ability to create, when I didn't believe that I was going to ever be a mother, it was women who held me up. It was women who breathed life back into me. They gave me back my faith, not only in myself, but in God. They helped me to trust again. And they never let me go. They never let me down. And they were with me until I conceived. And those relationships that I formed as part of my own self-work journey, and in the self-help group that I was in back in 2011, those relationships still remain, and they will forever be my sisters. And these are women that can call me whenever, and I will always show up for them. And that is why I believe so much in the power that we have as women to hold each other up and to really be there for each other and to make change in this world. We're the ones that are going to facilitate the change, but we can't do it alone. We can only do that together. So I'm going to end this podcast with just saying, make sure you're fostering relationships with women. And if there's anyone in your life that you are at odds with or struggling to understand, just step back for a moment and place yourself in their shoes, and understand that whatever is making the two of you clash has less to do with you and more to do with what's going on with that other person. And so with that, just try to be a little more understanding and forgiving and pray for them. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. If there was anything in this episode that really stood out to you, I would love to hear it. And if you just want to share your thoughts with me, reach out to me on Instagram, send me a DM. You can always email me. I love connecting with you guys. So until next time, mi gente, you know what it is. Go out there and crush some goals.